I'm continuing my reading here, and what I'm doing is reading through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order according to events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be jumping around a little bit as I go along. Right now, I am in Exodus. This will be chapter 14. This chapter does contain a number of Joseph Smith translation corrections. What the Joseph Smith translation is, it is an inspired correction or translation of the Bible done by Joseph Smith to restore those portions of the Bible that have been lost over the years. So, let us read chapter 14. Israel goes out of Egypt. They pass through the Red Sea on dry ground. The Lord overthrows the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Okay, there is a Joseph Smith translation here on verse 4, where it says, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart. Joseph Smith corrects this to say, and Pharaoh will harden his heart. Once again, as I've said in previous videos, putting the blame squarely on Pharaoh, not on God. Now, this is God's telling them to encamp next to the Red Sea. They actually haven't gotten out of Egypt yet, because Egypt borders the Red Sea. They're still in the land of Egypt at this time. And God's saying, no, we're going to put you up against the Red Sea for now, because Pharaoh is coming after you. And we're going to do one final thing to really show him who's boss. Verse 5. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with an high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, encamping by the sea beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. Once again, Joseph Smith translation on verse 8 changes, and the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh hardened his heart. Again, we got to make sure, we need to know that God did not do this. God did not cause him to do this in any way. This was him. But it says the king was told, the people fled. Remember, they told Pharaoh they just wanted to go out into the wilderness and make some sacrifices and have a bit of a feast, and that was it. Now they are at the very edge of the Egyptian lands. They're on the border of the Red Sea. And Pharaoh's told, they're not doing what they said they were going to do. They're leaving. And now Pharaoh's upset. So wait a minute. The deal is for a feast out in the wilderness, not for them to leave. We want our slaves back. We want that free labor. We're going to go get them. Here we go. Verse 10. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Okay, so they're actually saying that they're admitting that at times they told Moses to leave them alone. They were content to be slaves because it was security. Even though they were in bondage, they were persecuted, they had a form of security, and they did not want to give that up in exchange for the risks and unknowns of the wilderness. And now they see Pharaoh coming to kill them. They say, look, we told you Pharaoh was going to kill us if we tried to leave. This is your fault. So, verse 13. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will shew to you this today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his host, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. Once again, we go back. Joseph Smith translation in 17 says, I will harden the heart of the Egyptians. Joseph Smith corrects this. And I say unto thee, the hearts of the Egyptians shall be hardened, and they shall follow them. So now it is on the blame is squarely on the Egyptians. Not just Pharaoh, but all the Egyptians who are following him. But I also like this. Why are you asking me what to do? You've got the power. He's telling Moses, you've got the power. You've got the priesthood. You know what to tell the water to get out of your way. And I like that. He's not just saying, this is what I'm going to do for you. He's saying, Moses, we've been doing this now for a long time. You know what kind of power we have. You know what I can do. You know what you can do. You do it. Anyways, verse 19. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind, all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. So this wasn't just like you'd see in most movies. Moses holds out his hand and phew, the water goes. No, there was a strong east wind all during the night. It was a nightly process, several hours to part the water. But when it was parted, dry ground they all went. You'll also note that same pillar, they had a cloud in the morning, or during the day, and fire at night. God takes that same cloud, the cloud that they've been following, and he moves it back behind Israel to block the Egyptians. But not only is it blocking the Egyptians, even though it's fire, it is darkness to the Egyptians and light to Israel. We again see this separation, but I like this separation. Those who are following God walk in the light. Those who are opposing God are in darkness. It was the same thing with the 3 days of darkness, that wonderful plague. Goshen and the children of Israel had light. Egypt was in darkness. We see the same separation. Those who follow God walk in the light. Those who oppose God are in darkness. Verse 23. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. So here we go. Israel's going through the water. Apparently the cloud is following them now. Instead of them following the cloud, God is behind them, and the Egyptians follow behind the cloud until they get about halfway. They're in the midst of the sea, and then suddenly all their chariots break down. The wheels start coming off, and they're all crashing, they're all wrecking. They can't make it past the halfway point. And this is when they say, let us get out of here. We should have known better. After everything God did to us while Israel was with us, why did we think we could come and drag him back? God is fighting for them. Verse 26, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand upon the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So there we have it. This is very interesting. It's in the morning. We have the sea is parted all during the night, and then they go across. And it's the next morning that they're coming out of the sea. So apparently they were crossing the sea for about 24 hours. So it was the first watch of the morning. So it took them a while to get across. This wasn't a leisurely stroll. This was a full day's hike. In addition, we have to understand, this was not the widest part of the Red Sea. Remember, the Red Sea has those two fingers, two prongs that stick up in the north. They were crossing one of those. They weren't crossing the wide part down in the south. They were crossing up north where they could get across in a single day. But God caused the chariots to crash, and then, as the Egyptians were trying to run, he had Moses bring the waters back in, flooded them all, and said not even one. It was very specifically. In other places it states that all the Egyptians were affected, but here it says not so much as one escaped. This is a different wording. This actually tells us literally, this is nobody escaped. Before there may have been, so like with the destruction of the firstborn, I think that some Egyptians saw what the Israelites were doing and said, hey, we better do this too. Moses told them that it would save them, we can save ourselves. I have no doubt that there were some that did that. In this case, none of them survived. We will leave that here.